Hello, my name is Norma Ibarra. I'm originally from Mexico. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a skateboarder and photographer based in Vancouver, British Columbia. In these video segments, we're gonna talk about the basics of photography. Some of the things we're gonna learn are things like setting up your camera, lenses, getting the shot, composition, and more. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm still learning, I'm still growing, but I really hope that all that we're sharing in these videos is gonna help you get started. Our friends Chantal from Toronto, Ashley from Vermont, Sarah from Gothenburg, and myself are gonna share some knowledge, and hopefully you feel inspired to go out there and shoot with your friends.
My name is Chantal Garcia, my pronouns are she, her, and I am a photographer and skater in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Setting up your camera to shoot skateboarding requires a lot of practice, a lot of trial and error, research, and just time spent with your gear. Each new location is going to give you a new lighting scenario, different angle opportunities, and that's going to require you to set up your camera a little different each time, so we're going to go through that. I personally use a few different cameras, but no matter what camera you use, it's all about how you set your settings. I'm about to throw some key terms down, so grab a pen and paper and jot some notes if you need to. What I'm going to talk about right now is file quality, lens options, ISO, shutter speed, aperture, and focus. And now if you're new to this, you might not know what all these terms mean, so check out the PDF that we made. It's going to go over each term and give their definition. Before you head out and shoot, you're going to want to set your image quality settings to the highest possible setting on your camera. That's going to be likely RAW on most cameras, and it'll be probably on your first page, pretty easy to find. Every camera is a little different, so look up your manual if you have to. Next up, we'll talk lenses. There's two lenses that are super popular in skateboarding and super versatile. First up is a fisheye. It's a great lens that lets you get up nice and close, right into action. Next up is a 24 to 70 millimeter lens. This is a great lens because it lets you go wide and close up all in one lens, so you're not having to change them out. Now, you might not have all the lenses that you want when you first start off, and that's totally fine. Just work with what you have and build your skills off of there. So you've gotten to your spot, you've picked your angle, you've picked your lens. Now you need to set your settings to compensate for the lighting, and that's adjusting your ISO. My go-to is anywhere between 100 to 400, and you can think of ISO as fake light. The more fake light you add, the higher the grain is going to be. So you might need a little bit of ISO to 200 to 400, but as soon as you get up to 800, 12, and 16, you're adding a lot of grain to your photo that you don't want. So always the lower the better when it comes to ISO. After that, you're going to adjust your shutter speed. And your shutter speed is how fast your camera is going to be taking your picture. And if you're not using a flash, you're going to want to have your shutter speed pretty high to catch the action in front of you. So anywhere from 1,000 is a really great place to start. If you do have a flash, you're going to have to sync your shutter speed up to that flash sync speed. A lot of them start at 250. Each camera and flash is a little different though, so just make sure you look that up. After you've set your ISO and your shutter, you're going to want to set your aperture next. It's going to control two things. It's going to control the amount of light coming into your camera, and it's going to control your depth of field or your range of focus. If your f-stop number is higher, less light's coming into your camera, but your depth of field has become a lot larger and making it easier for you to focus. The lower the number, the more amount of light comes into your camera, but you have to consider that the lower the number, the shallower your depth of field. So that means that you might have to adjust your ISO to compensate for that. These two settings are going to play off of each other until you find the perfect mixture. Finally, you just need to focus your camera for the shot. Start off by turning your camera to manual focus. This is going to reduce the lag time from when you hit that shutter button to when the camera takes the picture. Get your skater to stand where the peak of their trick is going to be and focus on that spot. And there you go, you're set up to shoot. Just make sure that you constantly check your focus point just so that you're always in focus. So once again, those key settings to look into are image quality, lens options, ISO, shutter speed, aperture, and focus. But mainly get out there and just shoot and practice. Look at magazines for inspiration. Look at YouTube tutorials to learn your camera a little bit better. Ask people in your community. And I think the main thing that I've learned for the short time that I've been shooting is just do it for yourself and have fun with it.
Hey everyone, my name is Ashley Rosemeyer. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm a photographer living in Burlington, Vermont. I'm going to talk a little bit about trick timing and framing. In skateboarding, there is unspoken rules to timings on specific tricks. So this just takes a lot of time to study what they are, but in general, it's just the most exciting part of the trick. Here are some photos that Norma has shot of ollies. As you can see, these are all shot differently, but the timing of the trick is similar. Every skater has a different style. Not everyone does, they're always the same. But in general, it's when it's at its most tweaked or a level point for that skater. Here's one that shows it taken a bit early, and here's one that shows it taken with better timing. Looking through magazines and online will help you learn the timings for different tricks. When you're looking through magazines and you come across a photo that you're really stoked on, tear it out, hang it on your wall, study it every chance that you get, and it will only help you when you're out shooting. Now you could start to think about the framing of your photo. The photo needs to make sense to the viewer. Here's an example of one that doesn't. The skater's in the air and you have no idea where they're airing from or to. This is what's called a butt shot. You want to make sure to show the face of the skater in your photo and avoid shooting the backside when possible. Composition is the way you organize all the elements in a photo. For a clear composition, try and position the skater in the most uncluttered background. The sky is usually your best option, but if you don't have that, then try and isolate the skater as best as you can. Also, rule of thirds is a very popular term in photography. It's where you place your subject on one of the intersections. Here's a photo that incorporated the rule of thirds. It shows the face of the skater, where they're airing from, where they're airing to, and it shows the peak point of the trick.
Hello everyone, it's me again. Today I'm going skating with Fabi and Breezy. We're gonna shoot some photos and I'm gonna share with you how I go about it. Before getting started, consider all these things: the takeoff and the landing, the stance of the rider, the timing of the trick, and the composition and framing. Before taking any photos, I usually like to talk to the skater so that we are both on the same page. A fisheye lens is a very wide lens, which basically means you will have to get closer than you think. Using a fisheye lens will also require more communication with the skater so that you can get the effect that you want. Use your discretion, but usually the closer you get, the more dramatic look you will get. So here's my shot of Breezy, where I made sure I position her in the sky as well as on top of the rail so that the photo is not as busy. I also place her in the top third portion of the photo to keep her high and the spot looking big. Here's another example where I got really low and kept the skater frame high. This photo shows how using a fisheye creates a three-dimensional look, and it allows you to get closer while still being able to capture where they came from and where they're going. Shooting with long lens can be easier because you don't have to be on the weight of the skater and you will be able to hold the framing. This works well with spots that have a nice setting and when you're shooting at places that you really want to capture the environment around. Here is my photo of Fabi, where I use a 24 to 105 millimeter lens. You can see what the skater looks like, where she's coming from and where she's going. I also play with the transition and put it in the foreground. This technique is called foreground framing, which helps to create depth by adding a third dimension to the composition. In this case, I find the location so interesting that I wanted to capture all the details. Sometimes tricks and spots work better as a lifestyle shot as opposed to action, like this nose manual, where I went up the stairs and found a fence where I could frame the photo through, and I placed the skater in the lower right rule of thirds. Here is another unique and very photogenic spot. I shot this with a 70 to 200 millimeter lens. I really wanted to capture how big the hat was, so I walked away from the spot and found some dandelions. Then I laid on the ground to put them in the foreground of the composition. Sometimes there will be situations where the skater is filming a line and there might not be an opportunity to get a typical skate photo. Consider this as an opportunity to shoot behind the scenes and get creative. In this case, I used a reflection of a car mirror. Another good tip to get a good shot is to look for lines and shapes that will direct the eye of the viewer towards the skater. Try different angles, get high, get low, or find a place where you can climb to get a unique perspective and angle. I hope you go out with your friends, have lots of fun, and shoot lots of photos. And remember, don't get too caught up on the gear or on the camera or the equipment that you have. You don't need to have the most expensive gear. Just shoot with what you got and slowly start saving and building up on your equipment. What matters is to have fun and to practice a lot.
Hello, my name is Sarah, and my pronouns are she and her. I'm from Sweden. I live in Gothenburg. I'm a skateboarder and a photographer. I'm gonna run through some basic importing, editing, and exporting tips, and also some inspirations. After you've been out shooting, you're gonna have your files to work with. One of the most important things is to label your photos. This could be with the skater's name, the name of the trick, the location, the spot. You may also want to add your own name to the file if you're sending it away. Personally, I keep my folders named after year, month, also location. I have one folder for analog and one for digital. You can use different editing programs to improve your photos. Some programs you can use are Lightroom, Photoshop, and Camera Raw. Some ideas of basic edits you can make to your photos are cropping, adjusting the exposure, and the colors, of course. I recommend that you don't over-edit your photos and instead think about keeping a natural look. A good way of keeping colors natural, if there's a person in the photo, is to look at the skin tone and try to edit as similar to reality as possible. If you're shooting at your camera's maximum capacity and quality, they can be large files, so if you're sending them around, save a smaller version and use those to send out instead. You can easily resize photos in Photoshop. This is also a way to take control of your photos. By sending out a low-res picture, the receiver is less likely to use it without your consent, since they probably need the high-res. Another thing, always keep a backup of your files on an external hard drive. And last but not least, I probably heard somewhere else, but I can now send them along to you guys. One thing is to capture your own environment, to take photos of your friends, your own community. You probably have the most interesting subject right in front of your nose. It takes a while to find your own style, years, maybe decades. It's like skateboarding in a way. It's gonna take a lot of mistakes to get it right. I think most photographers want to do everything in the beginning, which is great because you're inspired, and you should go for it. Try everything if you feel like it. The more you shoot, the more you will find what you like and what works for you. And that's it for me. I hope you learned maybe something. Bye.
Photographing and documenting what's happening is really important, not just for yourself, but for people in your community. Yes! There might be really good skaters that might need your help, and this will give you such a great sense of accomplishment where you know that what you're doing is gonna help other people. I'm not like a super good skater, but I found a place in the community by documenting. It's okay to be scared, it's okay to make mistakes. You are gonna learn from them and then you will become better. So I hope this gives you a little bit of courage and the energy to start trying.